Okay, tenon corks. Now this tenon cork came off pretty easily without any work at all. It was falling off when I got the clarinet, so I'm just gonna clean it up. I don't have a special tool because I don't want to drop $42 on a tool when this little pocket knife works just fine. As a matter of fact, it probably works better because I can use this pocket knife to get in each of the grooves and scrape out all the glue inside each groove. Take a toothbrush, brush it out. Now I also, for the stubborn parts, have one of these I found at a store, a wire brush. So I just take that, and that gets a lot of stuff out. And whatever that doesn't get out, then I'll go back through. I'll go back through and get it with the blade of my knife. Okay, so now I'll have to go here. Ooh, that's awfully dusty. Yucky. So I'll use it. Alright, so now I'll go through the blade of my knife and get all the rest of, come on, all the rest of that out. Alright, so I'll pause it and be back in a minute. Alright, and as you can see, that is pretty darn clean. Alright, now, tenon corks. I do my tenon corks a little different than others do. For the bottom tenon, you need a larger piece of cork. When you buy tenon cork from Music Medic, it comes in sheets like this. This has already had a couple of them cut off. Let's see, here's a brand new sheet. Comes in sheets like this that are already beveled, which I don't even use the bevel, but the length is good. So all I have to do is cut the width off. However, the length is not good for bottom tenon corks. It doesn't quite work. So I have to use a sheet cork. Now tenon cork is 1/16 of an inch thick. Right there. Okay, 1/16 of an inch. There it is up there. Come on. So I bought some sheet cork that's 1/16, and this is how I measure it. Take my calipers and I go to the inside. Let's see if I can do this for you. There we go. And I spread them. There. All right, so I spread them there, and then I know that I have to add 5 millimeters to whatever that is. So that is 7.5, 5, 6, 7.5. So I'm going to push this out to 12.5. 10, 11, 12 and a half. And I'm going to look at it and eyeball it, and sure enough, that should put me right in the shoulders. Okay? I don't know if you can see that. That's what I do. Then, so 12.5, double check that. Over here, lay my cork down. Get a new razor blade. Mark 12.5 here, like so. Flip it over. Let's see if I can put it over here for you. Mark 12.5 here. All right. Now I've got 12.5 there, 12.5 there. Close my calipers and use it as a straight edge. Line that up. 12.5. Now some people will use a brand new razor blade, and a brand new razor blade does work fine, but if it's not brand spanking new, it's gonna grab. So what I found one of these in my wife's sewing kit. Ta-da! Fabric cutter. So I just line up that calipers, roll that along there, and I get a perfect cut every time. Now let's see how close I came. Now, I take it and I see if it'll drop in the shoulders, and I slide it and I push it back and forth and see it doesn't want to go anywhere. If it's too big, it'll push out. It'll either push down or it'll push out. But this is not going anywhere. I push it all the way through. Keep jiggling it back and forth. Yep, that's a perfect cut. So I know now that my cork is going to drop right into the shoulders. All right. So real quick, I find myself some my old sandpaper. Darn it. There it is. And I just smooth the edges to get off anything that might be still there. Now if I cut it too big, then I have to do this a lot to smooth the edge until it finally fits in the shoulders. But this one was perfect. Now, I don't have a little brick that I can put my thing sideways on and cut it off. So I just take this and I slide this at an angle. And if the razor blade is sharp, it just slices it and done. Perfect. Okay. Then I know that I want my seam to be on the back. So what I do is I start it here, roll it around to there, take a pencil, put a mark right there. All right, so now I got a mark right there. Roll it all the way around. Okay, take my glue, get a Q-tip. I don't paint the glue on with the brush because that's too much glue. It goes everywhere. Take a tiny bit of glue right here and hit the back of that. Oops, that's even too much. There we go. And take quite a bit more glue. You can't see that. So what I'm doing is, see, I'm just getting that glue off that brush like so. And then I'm going to paint the back of this with the Q-tip. See, I got a lot more control over it than if I used the can brush. All right, leave that aside. I'll do the same thing here. See if I can get this where you can see it. There. And just go around and then roll that around. Work that down into there. Bring it around from both sides. There's plenty of glue on that Q-tip. And there's plenty of glue on that tenon. I don't need to drown this thing. Alright, get that on. There we go. And let it dry, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, before I show you any more cork, tenon cork, I want to show you how I sand it. I don't use a peg. I use sanding strips. And the way I make them is I take a piece of book tape. I don't know if you can see that shiny. You see there's a piece of book tape there. I put that on the back of the sandpaper. Then I know that I want a 1/2 inch because that's what most of the cork is. Oh, come on. Usually a 1/2 inch right there. Okay. And this one is about a 1/2 inch. So I don't want it any bigger than that. So I simply measure 1/2 inch and use a razor blade to cut it. 1/2 inch there. Half an inch there. Measure twice. Cut once, so that's 1/2 inch. That's 1/2 inch. Put that right here. And now this sandpaper is going to ruin whatever whatever razor blade I use. So I'm going to use an old razor blade. See that? That just doesn't want to cut there, so we're just going to have to. There we go. There's my strip. All right, now to do the cork. Remember the pencil mark I made right there? All right, that pencil mark goes here, and my beveled side goes to the left. So I take this, where is my camera? There it is. All right. And I tuck that right down up against that bottom shoulder and then drop the top in. And if you see that, come on, you can see that that's right in there. Let me get some better light. There. You can see that is right in that shoulder. And then what I do is I pinch it. I'm looking straight down at it, which is hard for you to do. But I look down and I see that I'm in the shoulders, and I just roll this around, pinching it down in. I look right down in there and make sure it stays between the shoulders. And this way I don't have to deal with an entire piece of cork at one time. I do half of it. Pinch that in. Come on. Pinch that in. Flip this around. And start from the other side. Roll that in. I'm looking straight down into their cork, and then pinch that in there like so. Take my good razor blade and slide that there. And then, now this is important. What I do here is, now I roll it. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. Let's put the camera over here like so. There. Now I roll that. And then I angle it and roll it. So now I'm going to put this at an angle, pushing that bottom edge of the cork and make sure that's seating into that shoulder. And then I tilt it in the other direction. Make sure the top edge is seated in that shoulder. All right, then I take a good look at it and make sure that, there you go, there's no lifting on either side of the cork. That way I know it's down into the shoulder, okay? All right, now at this point, this is also kind of important. I take some painter's tape and I put it on a tenon all the way around. This way I can sand the top of that cork and not worry about damaging the tenon. See that? Now let's get the bell, get an idea of how much work we have to do. Oh yeah, a lot, because even with that tape on there, that bell doesn't want to go on there, even with the width of that tape. So now I know I'm going to have to sand that cork all the way down, okay, so that it's almost perfectly smooth against the tenon. So what I do is I just grab my sandpaper and I start with the seam, and I'll sand that seam down 4 or 5 times until that seam is perfectly smooth. Then I'll just go around the cork like so. And it's quite a bit faster once you get used to it. All right. And I'll also go at an angle. Once I get started, I'll go at an angle and I'll come down like so. And each time I do a new stroke, I'll just roll that body of that clarinet around just about 1/4 of an inch. Go over it and over and over again. Now, I had to take this outside because it creates an awful lot of dust. But that's what I'll do, and I'll get faster and faster as I go along. But I'll do that, I will do that seam right there about 2 or 3 times until it's smooth, and then I'll work all the way around, going just like so. Do it in an angle, and then I'll do it at the top, and I'll push hard across the top. You can see that would damage the tenon cork, or the tenon. And I'll run that down, and then I'll do it this way and do it towards the bottom. When I do it towards the bottom, I'll also pull down this way, which gives it a little bit of extra pressure against the bottom of that tenon. All right, so I'm going outside and do that. It's going to take me about 15 minutes. This is, by the way, P220 sandpaper.